I can't see anything down here. Could I get some light on this, please? Ah, much better.
One of the final things that I have to go over is nuclear power. Now, the nuclear power was by far one of the most amazing things ever implemented in Minecraft. It created a game within itself. It was a game within a game. It was a game to figure out how efficient you could make a nuclear reactor. Now, as we can see, I have this crazy setup. We got 4 uranium cells. The uranium cells producing more power, getting a power bonus when you place them together, but producing far more heat. So you have to have a ton of coolant cells, a ton of integrated heat dispersers to transfer the damage from coolant cells to adjacent coolant cells, and then integrated reactor plating, which I think increase the heat capacity of the reactor itself. Now, nuclear power was kind of the end game of IndustrialCraft, in which once you had nuclear power, you could start producing UU matter. However, nuclear power was really, really dangerous, as the explosion was actually worse, or at least I think it was worse, than that of the nuke itself. If you had a fully loaded reactor, the explosion would be just devastating, and you would risk blowing up your entire base. And for some reason, this has power in it. So I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm going to put down an empty MFSU. And we'll see just how much power this thing can pump out. Of course, the reactors themselves were incredibly dangerous. For one thing, you had to keep the reactor surrounded with water. The more water was touching the sides of the reactor, the better the cooling of it was. However, this thing could produce a ton of heat. So if you wanted to produce significant amounts of power, you would have to do so with the aid of something like this, the remote thermal monitor, which was a separate mod added on. And this would emit a signal based on how hot the reactor got. So let's set this up to 200, or 2000 rather. Now it should be able to produce heat. There we go. For some reason the wire wouldn't update. So now if we look inside, we can see everything is taking damage. The integrated reactor plating is taking damage, the heat dispersers are taking damage, and the coolant cells are taking damage. And now if I get myself a thermal monitor, we can see just how much temperature has built up. Or maybe not. That won't actually tell us. Let's get a digital thermometer. So as we can see, it tells us the melting point of the reactor, which is whoa. If the melting point is 14, we need to set this down a little bit. Let's set it to 1300. So as we can see, the melting point of the reactor is 14,280. And the water evaporating point is 8,400. So it's at that point the water inside of the reactor, or this reactor casing, will start to evaporate. And this became a huge problem, because if the water blocks evaporated, that means the reactor would get hot faster, which is it wasn't so much of a problem back in Tekkit because we had the red power to pump. So you could continue pumping water into this containment chamber. But as we can see, everything is taking damage. The uranium cells are starting to become damaged. Ultimately, what you'd want is for these coolant cells to eventually repair themselves, as well as, well, I think the integrated heat dispersers and integrated reactor plating, I don't think those will eventually repair themselves. I think their damage is permanent. It's hard to remember all this, but there you go. This was the game ender. Once you got nuclear power, you were big pimpin'. And of course, the reactors produce tons of power. Look at this. So far, in the minute or so that it's been running, I've produced 250 some thousand EU. And this would be filled in no time if I went even crazier and placed more uranium cells next to each other. So you know what? Let's bump this up. Let's just set it all the way. 14,500, and melting point is what? 14,200. Sure. Let's go out with a bang. And I'll come back when the reactor is ready to go big. One thing I forgot to talk about with the reactor was the fact that it didn't just stop at being able to do this little mini game with all these reactor parts, the uranium cells, coolant cells, heat dispersers. Once you've expended the uranium fuel, you get what is this? Near depleted uranium cells. And then of course you can build a breeder reactor to re-enrich the uranium cell, and you get these re-enriched uranium cells. And then of course you get depleted isotope cells, which can't do anything with. Yeah, you take the re-enriched uranium cell, combine it with coal dust, get another uranium cell. But you got depleted isotope cells, which are apparently useless. Actually, I think they are used to re-enrich the uranium cells. So yeah, there you go. You take a near depleted uranium cell, mix it with coal dust, you get the depleted isotope cell. You put the depleted isotope cell in a breeder reactor, and you get the re-enriched uranium cells. Man, this has done a great job at producing a ton of power. Oh jeez, I didn't realize there was a hole there. Whoops. Now let's check the temperature. Hull heat, only 24. That's not good enough. We need it hotter. So let's put this back down to, come on. Let's put it down to 0. I don't know why that's not updating. So now we have it at 0, right? Well, let's take and put a whole bunch of uranium cells into this and let it go big. Oh, and we can even see the coolant cells, the integrated heat dispersers, and the plating are actually healing themselves. So I was wrong earlier. Those things do repair themselves. So that's, how much is that? That is 10 uranium cells. Alright, let's see how big this thing can go. Now let's get rid of this stuff in my inventory. And for the sake of safety, I'm going to put on a quantum suit. Oh. Come on. There we go. I should be well protected now. Come on, should get hot. Well, temperature's going up. Alright, let's come back when this is about to explode. Okay, it's about to go big. Let's stand back a little bit. Whoa! And there we go. Our poor reactor has exploded. I think it exploded further down than it did any other direction. Of course, that was because of the cable going down through the bottom of the containment chamber. But there you go. That is classic Industrial 2. IndustrialCraft2, I should say. IndustrialCraft2, yeah, IndustrialCraft2 is one of my most favorite mods. But now that I've gone over the good and the bad of this, it's time to move on to what I guess is the ugly. So tune in next time for my review of IndustrialCraft2 for 1.6.4 of Minecraft. See you then.
I bet you were expecting some sort of fancy outro. Nope. Just this. But hey, you know what would be cool? Clicking one of those links below. Yeah, that'd make it cool.